So this is exactly the time when you've lost all the other major competitors in a primary, when a party is supposed to rally around that kind of figure. And yet in the crucial states I mentioned, Ohio and Florida, 18% of the primary voters rejecting Trump. Bright red Kansas, higher, 21%. Ohio's exit polls have even more red alert signs because the Ohio Republicans who turned out, many are just saying they don't like Trump as the nominee. They obviously have gotten to know him over these years, and they have concluded, about a fifth of them, that he still lacks the temperament to be president again. 1 out of 5 saying, based on that, they're not going to back him in November. This is an indicator of the ongoing rift in the GOP. Now, that is worse than some Republicans were hoping for, with, again, Nikki Haley getting out, and the message being, whatever you think, if you want to beat the Democrats, and that's what most Republican Party members want to do, the argument would be it's time to coalesce. And none of this means it can't be fixed just because it looks worse for them than they thought. Reagan famously patched things up with his primary rival, Bush, to unite the party, to campaign together, all smiles after a lot of debating and fighting. But it took a kind of outreach that Reagan was able to do that Trump is not doing, certainly not to Nikki Haley herself, not really publicly to her voters. In fact, it is the Biden campaign and its high-powered allies right now that are courting some of Haley's Trump foes, her top donors who were trying to stop him. That effort seeks to both fund Biden and take donors off the table to corner Trump as he faces this cash crunch. There is fatigue, there's hesitation reported about donors who've been giving to Trump for years, but now, as CNBC reports, have had it. And there is a context for that. Donald Trump has diverted tens of millions of his donors' money into efforts that really don't have anything to do with winning campaigns in the future. That includes the history of those futile attacks on the election he lost, led by now indicted Giuliani, funding extreme efforts to complain about it, to push conspiracy theories, diverting money to cover Donald Trump's personal legal bills, and that went on for years. That fatigue took time, but it has landed among some Republicans. We can measure that now. And all that's before the latest money problems for Trump as he loses these fraud and defamation cases. And then you had this week's confession from Trump lawyers that turns out he doesn't have the money required under law to appeal that massive fraud loss. Dozens of bond companies won't back him. MSNBC has been reporting on that along with other outlets. And the issue, of course, is that the properties that Trump might put up as collateral may not have enough value to secure the bond. So here we are, the problems I mentioned on Unity and the financial problems. What does it look like when Donald Trump's personal legal debts and campaign cash crunch combine? Well, I'm about to show you. Because Donald Trump is now essentially admitting in public he could actually lose his properties if he doesn't get a kind of MAGA political welfare from his fans. A man who claims to be a billionaire is now asking people who live check to check to send their money to him so that, as the fundraising email puts it, the government will keep its hands off Trump Tower. The former president and apparently indebted defendant calling on, quote, 1 million pro-Trump patriots to bail him out. So where are we tonight? You know, I was off on vacation. I came back covering the news with you. You're probably pretty caught up. I'll tell you where I think we're at. Donald Trump has already reached the GoFundMe stage of this campaign. And we have 7 months left and maybe some trials left. And remember, Trump's lawyers were offering better terms to banks or lenders than to his own fans. To the bond companies, the Trump lawyers said, hey, give us this money and Trump will put up the collateral, those buildings he may partly own. And then once we get through this, Trump would pay back those lenders with interest. That was the pitch. To the Trump fans, though, no, they don't get that kind of favorable deal from their leader or guru or candidate or former president. The pitch was Trump would take their money, never give any of it back, and you can forget about interest. So I want to point something out here that's kind of straightforward or obvious, but bears noting with regard to the hypocrisy and where we are in our civic process. Donald Trump is offering capitalism for the banks because he has no other choice, but socialism and handouts for himself when he swipes from his own fans. It serves as a reminder that as a factual matter, this Trump project that so many people are living through in America, it does not run on populism. It does not run on policies to address economic anxiety. It runs on a transfer of wealth from the have-nots, who get these MAGA fundraising emails, and most of whom are anywhere near Trump's level of claimed wealth, and transferring that to the haves. That goes from the funding of the campaign and Trump's legal debts to the larger tax cuts enacted when he was in office. Now, the banks have wised up sooner than the so-called little guys, and that's usually how it goes. Though some of Trump's small dollar donors, as they call them, these are people who give 20, 30, 50, 100 bucks sometimes by email. Those are people who do watch Fox, where Trump's debts and his known refusal to pay up are now being covered as a fact of life.
If he can't get to the Supreme Court, will you loan him the $460 million? Just to help, in order to protect America's name. Think of it that way.
To get the bond, he was able to get the $90+ million from Chubb.
Yeah.
I don't know of a bond more than $90 million.
Generally, Donald doesn't have a great record at paying back banks over the years.
True. That's how they're discussing it there. And what you heard was the sound of a former Trump advisor, Larry Kudlow, who now works for Fox, asking another really rich guy if he would cover the tab. As you noticed, the answer was not forthcoming, certainly wasn't a yes. So here we are. The billionaire can't actually pay his debts. The law and order candidate actually is a defendant, in some cases civilly convicted, if you want to call it civilly liable. The Republican who inspires so much party loyalty can't close the deal with his own primary voters this week when he's the only name left on the ballot. Those are some contradictions. You could take it all in and say it is backwards. Or you could take it all in and say, well, it's actually starting to make sense because if, however slowly, it looks like the lies and the debts are failing to work, that accountability is catching up, which is why we are treated to the most oxymoronic position one could claim in modern capitalism. A true contradiction and oxymoron. We are covering the so-called plight of the broke billionaire.